Welcome to episode 1039, my interview with Mike Maddock, discussing leadership, blind spots, and many other cool things. Great conversation today, guys. Enjoy. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the Hidden Wire podcast. Great to have you here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Whereabouts are you located?
Just outside Chicago, on the other side of the planet.
Chicago. Okay. Yes, and it's wine time for you and coffee time for us here in Australia.
Absolutely.
But mate, so what? You've got some interesting work that you do. You help people with business growth, etc. What is it exactly you do? You're a motivational speaker, author, and coach. What did you say?
I'd start with entrepreneur. I've started 7 different companies. My primary business is about 3 decades old now. It's called Maddock Douglas. It's an innovation consulting firm. Mm-hmm. We've worked with 25% of the top 100 countries or companies in the world, helping them launch new products and services. So
you've worked with 25% of the top 100 companies in the world.
That's right. Yeah. So what we do is we do research, we find gaps in the market, and we help them stand up a new product or service to fill that need. And so I get to work with really clever people trying to put a dent in the universe. How about that?
That's cool.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this for?
That company started in 1991. So is that 31 or 32 years now?
91. You started young. You still look young.
I did. Thank you. I did. I started... I've had companies my whole life. I started my first company about maybe 14.
Wow. What was that?
And it was, lawn care.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted some money in my pocket. So I figured out ways to cut lawn and get other kids to help me shovel snow and cut lawn and stuff like that.
What was the drive for you? It seems like a lot of entrepreneurs have that young age experience where they sell something or start a business and...
It's a good question. The first thing that comes to mind is I like the freedom that having a couple bucks in my pocket gave me. But all of my businesses have been around service. I'm a servant guy. My dad's a servant leader. So it was fun for me to find problems to solve, be of service to others and get paid for it. And, that's a thread through all of my businesses.
Finding the solutions to people's problems, I guess, and filling that gap, and based around innovation. I've read a lot about your work. They call you the idea monkey. Is that right?
Yeah, I wrote a book called Free the Idea Monkey, which was my nickname. It was a business partner of mine, Raf Viton. One day I was walking by his office and he said, Hey, idea monkey, get in here. He was stuck on a challenge. And I think he was teasing me, but I thought it was so delightful that, it was like a wind-up toy. I respond to everything with about 17 different ideas, and that I've always been that way. And that's really useful until it's not. There are certain leaders who are divergent thinkers and they react to pressure by changing things and coming up with new things. And there are other leaders that are convergent leaders who, they focus on doing one thing really well, better every day. And that reflex is excellent if that's what the market calls for and dangerous if it doesn't. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the tension between visionary leaders and operators.
Right. That's interesting, isn't it? And you're right. I guess both levels of leadership can have its time and place, I suppose, depending on the market. That must always change in your experience with businesses. That there always must be a changing market. You can do something good for many, many years, but it won't last forever, will it? Because everything ultimately changes. Yeah,
and what happens is most companies are started by wide-eyed entrepreneurs that have the stones to take on the man and try something different.
Right.
But most companies are scaled by operators, people that understand how to create systems and metrics and, tighten things up. And, but it's the balance of both of those skills that makes companies able to repeatedly invent themselves over and over and scale. And also, what you see is that the most inventive companies, I would challenge you to answer the question, what business are they really in? Like they have such an expansive view of how the problems that they are able to and capable of solving, that it's hard to pin them down. Like what business is Apple in?
Yeah, I would say tech, but
yeah, they're in the phone business, the money business, the computer business. It's a big question. But what happens is that companies that are run tightly by operators, they get really myopic about the business they're in, and they forget. So all of a sudden they wake up one day and they think they're in the railroad business, and they lose the opportunity to own every ship, every airplane, because they're actually in the transportation business. But everyone that works for them is thinking about making the trains run on time, buying cheaper steel, etc. So that's called marketing myopia. And it's an idea that was developed in 1967 by Theodore Levitt, a Harvard professor. It happens every day in businesses that forget the business they're actually in, and that's how they get disrupted.
Yeah, and you're right. It starts off with that particular person who's got the courage and the balls to take on the bigger players, maybe, or come up with something courageous and unique, and bring that out to the marketplace. And then usually operators take over and sort of scale the company from there. But we've seen, like Apple, for example, Steve Jobs remained in the company for many, many years, and he was that disruptor, wasn't he? Really?
He was, actually, until he got kicked out of the company and the company crashed. And then he came back in and revitalized it. My favorite example is General Electric. I was on the board of advisors for their innovation council, and I remember flying to New York and going to 30 Rock and going all the way up to the top floor and walking down a long hallway full of black and white pictures of middle-aged white guys that had run the company. And one of the other advisors said, "You know why we're here, right?" And I said, "Yeah, we're here to help them innovate." And he goes, "That's right. But do you know it's been 13 years since GE has launched a new product or service or business model, even though they have thousands and thousands of patents?" And I was blown away by it. But boy, could they Six Sigma. Boy, could they mitigate risk. Jack Welch was such a great operator that he came in there and tightened the screws for decades, or almost decades. And that worked until it didn't. And that's Thomas Edison's company. Thomas Edison's company. When Jack Welch left that company, they lost $200 billion of market share. Why? Because they'd gotten out of balance. They were operated so efficiently that they squeezed all the profit out of their products and services, and then they didn't have anything new for the world. So the companies that are really good at scaling have a yin and a yang, an idea monkey and a ringleader, a Sheryl Sandberg and a Zuckerberg that balance each other out.
Right. Interesting. Can you sort of tell when you're introduced to a company or a leader even where they sit on that level? Like, are they the operator or the, I guess? Yeah,
you can actually test. You can test for it. I started a company called Flourish Forums, and it's a virtual advisory board. So there are at least 6 C-level people that meet every month, 6 to 10, and they occupy one of 6 seats. So you have your operator, your strategist, your rainmaker, your visionary, your tech futurist, and your orchestrator. And I use the Colby test to understand, even though you could probably do all of those things, which seat do you naturally retreat to under pressure or when you're in flow? And so to your question, on the Colby, it's spelled Kolbe. If you're a high quick start, like a 3393, you're an idea monkey. If you're a high fact finder and high follow through and low quick start, you're an operator or a strategist, depending on what the pattern is. And so what you want is an advisory board or a board of directors or a forum, in this case, that sees the world 5 different ways.
Yep.
Because your blind spot is closely related to your expertise. Or as Marshall Goldsmith says, what got you here won't get you there. And you want peers who you respect to say, to be able to say, I hear you think that's your problem, but I see it differently. And here's an experience it reminds me of, and here's my big takeaway, so that you can say, hopefully, wow, maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. And that's how you get outside that blind spot.
So just talk to us about this blind spot again. And you just sort of mentioned that it's often, would you say that it's often your area of expertise is your blind spot? Is that what you said?
Yeah, your biggest strength is your biggest weakness, isn't it? So if our company isn't profitable, if you're an operator, your reflex is going to be, well, that means because our KPIs aren't right. It's because our margins are too slim. It's because we have too many people. You see the world through an operator's lens. And that's your strength. That's why you became the president of your company, because you are so good at systems thinking and thinking efficiently. But what if the problem is that your product or service is no longer relevant? You need to be, a visionary's instinct would say, screw the KPIs and the systems. We need a new product that everybody wants. We're no longer relevant. So they both might be right, depending on what the market tells them. But the point is that they have a blind spot that is the opposite of their strength. And you can go through every great leader, and the truth is that again, our greatest strength is our greatest weakness.
Interesting. And I suppose you don't necessarily have to be in trouble in business to start to look at these things. I mean, you could be in a business that's somewhat flourishing, but still need to look at the business from this perspective.
Yeah, in fact, when your company's in balance, I love the metaphor of sailing. When you have wind in your sails, you can go anywhere you want as fast as you want. When the wind dies, you can't do anything. So think of the wind in your sails like revenue. When revenue is good and you want to try things, you have the money, you have the courage. People are like, yeah, let's invest in this new idea. Let's have a portfolio of new ideas. But that's not what usually happens. What usually happens is, holy crap, we got to do something. Well, now everyone's afraid of losing their jobs. You're out of money. So everyone retreats to what they did yesterday and doubles down on it a little bit more today. And so it becomes very, very difficult to innovate in a fearful culture. So great leaders understand that, and they're actually investing when things are going well.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Like some of the symptoms of being in, my favorite saying, Lee, is you can't read the label when you're sitting inside the jar, which is to say, the longer you've been working on a challenge, a business, in the industry, congratulations, the more of an expert you become, which means you know what works, you know how you make your money, you know what's legal, you know what the boss wants, you know what you can afford. And the more you know, the harder it is for you to see possibility when it's right in front of you. And so the symptoms that you're in the jar, number one is you're an expert. If you're an expert, you have certain ideas about what expertise looks like. If you get angry about new ideas, if you find yourself getting pissed off when someone comes to you with an idea, well, that means you're passionately committed to something. And that passionate commitment to something creates a blind spot. If you keep trying to solve the same problems again and again and again, but you can't fix it, in design thinking, they would tell you you're working on the wrong problem. You just are. So you have to shift the problem you're trying to solve. So those are some symptoms of the expertise trap.
So if you can see some signs of that, I mean, I guess complacency is what I often look at in my business as well, but looking out there at other businesses too. I see people get this level of success, or businesses get this level of success, and then I think they just take it like the wind in sails. It's just there. It just happens, and you sort of take it for granted, and perhaps you become a bit complacent about what's coming up behind you. And I think that's what's always exciting for me, is that idea of how can I recreate something? How can I stay ahead of the competition, with what I do? And perhaps I'm more of a visionary than an operator. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's possible in any business to look at, what the business is doing and thinking outside of that box.
Yeah, and there's a place for visionary thinkers. What I see my friends that are scaling companies do is if there's a visionary leader like you, and there's a great operator, when it's working, it's almost like a love affair. You so respect what the other one does that you can't do, that you let them do it. So oftentimes what happens is the visionary leader says, okay, this company's running really well, operator, you got it. You got the wheel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and start launching a different business, or I'm going to run our incubator, or I'm going to go, because that energy has to be applied somewhere. And the visionary leader will screw things up. Because their impulse is to always be changing things, even when it's working really well. But the operator also has to be able to say, look, all of a sudden things aren't going so well. So can you come back and help us rethink this business?
Right.
And when the visionary leader has started a new division, a new product, a new service, they need to then lean on the operator and say, okay, it's going. Can you make it run more smoothly? And that's how things work. But I right after, here's an embarrassing story. Right after I wrote that book, Free the Idea Monkey, to focus on what matters most, our little company had scaled from 3 million to 5 million to 8 million to 12 million to $15 million in revenue, a little company. And that happened inside of 3.5 years. So that's pretty incredible growth. And then we started to flatten. And right after that, I tested our leadership team, and I was stunned to find out that almost the entire leadership team were a bunch of idea monkeys, even though they had names like.
Did you use the Colby test for that? Is that what you mean?
Did. Yeah. We did. And I was stunned. The only one who wasn't a quick start on our leadership team was our CFO, which was good, or we would have all been in prison. But it explained things like it's why we were so good at coming up with new ideas and so ineffective at executing. We were always talking about what's next instead of, wait a minute, in the last meeting we had all these commitments but we're not hitting any of them. And so had we been in balance, we would have been able to continue to scale, but we weren't. And so we flattened out. And so, all of us speakers and writers and entrepreneurs are constantly trying to figure out our own stuff. And I'm working on myself over here. But I see this pattern in small companies, big companies, mid-sized companies. So it's a real opportunity.
Well, it's great to have that level of awareness where you allow yourself to see, where I guess a lot of people can be arrogant to being open to that,
Well,
and you explained some things, quite beautifully there. I like the idea of, because I guess I fall into that trap where I'm always trying to reinvent things, even though it's working fine, instead of focusing my energy on something new. What is your advice for a company that wants to bring in innovation and scale their business to that next level? I know it's obviously probably a hard question to answer because businesses are at different levels anyway, but is there any advice you'd give small or bigger businesses?
Yeah, I think one really useful framework is a portfolio framework. I have lots of thoughts on this, but one way to think about innovation is first define it. Everyone has to understand what innovation is. Innovation is the intersection of an insight, a need in the market, an idea, a product, service, or business model that actually fixes or meets that need, and then an experience that makes people say, wow, thanks, I'll pay you this much for it. So insight first, idea second, experience third. Most people think innovation is ideas, but that's dangerous. Companies that are really good at innovation actually have fewer ideas. They're just great at finding market needs, quantifying them, prioritizing them, and solving the biggest needs first. So that's number one. Get your definition of innovation down. Number two, have a portfolio strategy around innovation. There's a simple 2x2 portfolio. I've written 4 books. It's in Brand New. It's in Free the Idea Monkey. And I think it's also in Plan D about disruptors. But the framework is a 2x2 framework. The y-axis is we know how to do it or we don't know how to do it. The x-axis is we know people want it or we have no idea if they want it. So bottom left is we don't know how to do it, or excuse me, we know how to do it and we know people want it. That's called evolutionary innovation. You need to do it. You got to do it all the time. It should probably be about 65% of the work you're doing because you're listening to your customers, but there's not a lot of margin in it. Top left, we don't know how to do it, but people are asking for it. That's differentiated innovation. That's 15% of your time and resources. Higher margin when you figure it out. It's different. It differentiates your company. Bottom right, we know how to do it, but we don't know if anybody wants it. That's fast fail. You just experiment. Lots of experiments, not much money, see if anybody wants it. In the top right, and this is where most people get in trouble, we don't know how to do it. We have an idea. We're not sure how to do it, and we're not sure if anybody wants it. This is like the moon launch, revolutionary innovation. And you know, by definition, it's super high risk. So if you think about how you invest your money, you want a bunch in the bottom left, a little bit in the top left, very little in the top right, and a little bit in the bottom right. And if you balance that out, your company will be constantly innovating and mitigating risk, just like you put your own money in the market.
That's cool. Can that framework be found in your books, did you say?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And you know, I've written for Forbes for years. I've written about it, Business Week. I just started writing for Inc. So if you Google Mike Maddock Innovation Framework, I'm sure it'll come up for you.
Find it there. Yeah, well, I'll stick the links to the books in the show notes for people listening, and your website as well, Mike, so people can have a little bit more of a look into your work and what we're talking about here today. Yeah, what a great framework. Any other tools that you'd give to a business owner?
So I think chapter 4 in Plan D is all frameworks. Plan D is about disruptors, and it goes through the 8 superhero powers that I define disruptors as people that blow shit up for the good of the whole, use. And so the idea is, if you want to be disruptive in a good way, you know, pick one of those chapters, read it. It's a story about an entrepreneur, an outline of their superhero power and how to use it. And in the framework chapter, I think I outline 10 different frameworks. Here's one of my favorites, the 1-3-1 framework. Have you heard of this, Lee?
No.
Okay. So I use this in Flourish forums. 1-3-1. So someone comes into your office and says, "Hey, boss, we got a problem." And you say, "Okay, it's Friday afternoon, Kelly. I'll tell you what, on Wednesday at lunch, I want you to 1-3-1 it for me." So you go to lunch with Kelly on Wednesday and say, "Okay, give me your 1-3-1. 1, here's what I think the problem is. 3, here are 3 ways to solve that problem. 1, here's my recommendation." So that's the 1-3-1. And you can run a whole company using a 1-3-1 framework. The beauty of it is that you're teaching people to think critically, have a point of view, and manage themselves. Now, as the boss, you can always say, "I don't think that's the problem," or you can agree with the problem. "I like your solutions, but I'll pick door number 2 instead of door number 1. But it's a really cool framework. The way I modify it in Flourish forums is 1, here's how I see the issue. 3, here are 3 experiences that based on the way I see the issue. And here's my number 1 learning from the way I see the issue. That way, another leader can say, "I know you think it's about your hiring practice. I think it's about fear. I think you're afraid to let go of control." Or I was afraid to let go of control. And if you have 6 different looks at the challenge, like 6 different people see it differently, well, that goes back to that. If you keep trying to solve a problem over and over, but you can't solve the problem, you're probably working on the wrong problem. And having other leaders say, "Wow, I see it differently," is the greatest gift one leader can give to another.
Yeah, that 1-3-1, I love it. It's probably very empowering for a workplace.
Really simple to remember too.
Simple to remember, yeah. No, I like that. Yeah, mate, that's fantastic. I don't know where to go with the conversation now. The innovation is going through my mind about what I can do in my company, I suppose.
That's the way it should go. I hope you're not alone.
No, I think a lot of businesses out there listening to this, or entrepreneurs even, would find a lot of value in what you're saying here, and certainly encouraging to check out more of your work and your ideas there as well. Any particular sort of routines or rituals you have, mate, that help keep you in check in life? Obviously, you're a busy person.
I've become. Have you noticed, Lee, that there are people that are way, 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 way more successful than we are, but they seem to work less?
Yeah.
You notice that?
Yeah.
I think there's a as one gets older, they are much more intentional about working on essential things than urgent or important things. So what I try to do at the end of every day is make a short list, one or two things of essential stuff that I have to get done the next day.
Yeah.
And I have found that if I take care of one or two essential things before the urgent or important takes over my day, life is much better. And I'm not going to tell your listeners what the essential things are, but they can be family, they can be personal, or they can be work. But I don't think anybody ever regrets their life if they've focused on the essential instead of the important.
No, it's a really valid point, and that's the idea of starting your day off earlier before the rush, I suppose, to do those essential things, whatever they might be. Certainly makes you feel a lot better about your day.
Yeah, and I'm such a crazy idea monkey that I'm easily distracted. And when people come and say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" I want to help them. And usually those are important or urgent things and not really essential. So I take care and take care of the essential first.
How do you manage your distraction, your monkey mind or creative mind? Like, if you're obviously easily distracted, do you have a meditation, or do you do something to sort of put you back into the line?
Well, I don't think I'll speak for the boys in the audience. When I was a little kid, the teachers would run us in the playground pretty hard in the morning, and then they'd run us pretty hard halfway through the day. And unless they did, we were bouncing off the walls. I don't think that changes much. I think it's pretty important to go out and exercise hard. So one of the things I try to do early in the day is have a really good workout, and it clears my mind. Then, as I mentioned, I will take on one or two essential things, right out of the gate. And then I guess lastly, I compartmentalize. I have sections of day that I hold for exercise, for essential, for family, and I try to hold to that. My wife. This is personal, but what are you going to do? About 16 months ago, we found out my wife was terminally ill with brain cancer, and so I have learned that I'm pretty damn good at compartmentalizing, and it's the only way I've been able to, be I think a pretty good husband and a pretty good dad, and still be a pretty good business person. Flourish Forms, I started the day before I found out she got sick, or she was sick, and it's done pretty well. So compartmentalization is a skill that I would recommend to anybody out there.
Yeah. Sorry to hear, mate. Hope she's going well.
Yeah. Well, we're enjoying the moments we have. So thank you.
Yeah. No, good to share. And going back to business, do you see any major disruptions coming to not just a particular industry, but the way we do things generally, or have done things for the last 50 to 100 years?
Sure. We commissioned a study. You spent about $500,000 on a prediction market. Are you familiar with the prediction market?
No.
So it's really cool research methodology. Wall Street is a prediction market. A gambler's book is a prediction market. It's where people bet their own money on an outcome that they think is going to happen, and they have full access to any research they want, just like Wall Street. Yeah. And in a prediction market, there are algorithms that reward, you get paid more based on the quality of your prediction, the amount of information you back your prediction with, and how many people bet behind you. So it's a really great way to measure the wisdom of the crowd. And you get qualitative and quantitative. You get all this information that you wouldn't have gotten. Like, for example, we did a prediction market a couple of years ago, and so one of the predictions, someone had done a patent search on cryptocurrency, and because patents are public record, and at the time, Bank of America had more patents around cryptocurrency than anybody else, which was telling because they had a 3-year strategy that was informed by the patent walls they were creating. And that's one of the reasons he made his prediction. And our client was like blown away because they didn't know that, like, holy, wow, that's cool. Anyway, this prediction market that we did, we did a prediction market with professional advisors and consumers who bought advice professionally. We made 9 bold predictions. I'll give you one of them.
Yep.
The prediction was in the future, advisors will work for a company because of the technology the company has, instead of the brand on the door. Said differently, I'm kind of murdering the prediction, but the technology stack is more important than the brand. How many advisors do you think predicted that would be true?
Yeah, well.
What percent? 10%, 20%, 30%?
Probably in the lower areas, yeah, 20%.
Yeah, it was closer to 90% of professional advisors said that they would choose the platform before the brand. And millennials were north of 80%. But here's the thing, boomers and Gen X were in the toilet. They didn't see it coming. The reason that matters is because most professional advisory firms are run by boomers and Gen X. These are people that have made a tremendous amount of money selling, real estate, insurance, financial services. They have gray hair, they have fancy cars and expensive watches, and they're going, that'll never happen. Boomers and Gen X say that'll never happen. Meanwhile, the young advisors say it's already happening. So we did work for a company called Invest Tools many years. We developed a platform called Thinkorswim, helped them develop a platform called Thinkorswim. We were the research component that was sold to TD Ameritrade. Here in the States, if you watch TD Ameritrade commercials, there's an investor who's got a green couch and he's talking about this Thinkorswim platform on his iPad. He's talking to a customer. He goes, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And we saw that commercial. We don't work with TD Ameritrade, but I thought, you know what? He's trying to attract advisors. This is a commercial attracting advisors, not consumers, because they've got this really cool tool that makes advisors smarter, faster. It's kind of like Tony Stark and Iron Man. He's smart, he's handsome, he's rich, but when he puts on his suit, he's a superhero. That's what the platform does for advisors. That prediction, 80% of millennials said and 90% of advisors said would happen within 3 years. So
when was this prediction made?
Cool. Pardon me, it was finished about a year ago.
Where can people find out the other predictions?
They can send me a note and ask me about them. Yeah, we haven't published them. We've been giving talks, and I've been presenting to a bunch of boards about the prediction study. But it's juicy. There's one of them.
That's awesome, man. I love your work. I can see you're passionate about it, and it's very exciting too. Actually,
thanks, man. Me too. Likewise, I really appreciate you.
It's awesome.
Your curiosity. I haven't been to your wonderful country. It's on my bucket list. I'd love to
let us know when you're here. Opening back up nowadays, so it's all good.
Yeah, I'd love to. I will for sure.
It's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. Now, the website for you, again, is mike/maddock.com.
That's the speaking site.
That's the speaking site.
Yeah, mike-maddock.com is my speaking site. MaddockDouglas.com is the consulting firm, and that's mike@maddockdouglas.com. If the virtual forum is interesting to you, you can Mike at flourishforums.com. I'm really easy to find. Just Google Mike Maddock and you'll find me.
There's a bunch of websites there. I've just done that. No, I'll stick some links in the show notes so everyone can connect. And Mike, thanks again for taking out the time. You go get that glass of wine you've deserved and enjoy your evening.
All right, brother. Nice to be with you, Lee. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families. You can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcasts. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link, it helps support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose, and in doing so you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name is Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.